What's going on? I hope your day is going great. And in this video, what we're going to try to complete is another project that's geared more towards the beginner web developer that's specifically that's targeting HTML and CSS. And that's right, no JavaScript, at least for this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to build this project here, which is a fairly simple project where we have a image right here in our footer, well, in our header section, and then we have some text down here below our header with a button that just says home. Now, with that being said, let's jump directly into the project. So here we are in the project. If you have downloaded this project from the link below, you should already have the HTML file with the fonts already configured for you, complete with a style guide that shows all our primary colors, plus the fonts that we're going to use with the font weight. We also have right here the different font sizes, so we don't have to try to figure out what any of that is. It should already be there for us in our style guide. Now, with that being said, let's actually head back to our index file to start actually doing our coding. Okay, so now, what do we need? What do we need here? So the first thing I like to do is kind of just add a section that's going to house all our different code for that matter. Okay, so let's go back to our mockup really quick. Okay, there we go. Let's just call this section, or let's add the class name as thank you, because I believe this is a thank you. I believe this is like a thank you section or a thank you kind of maybe page where let's say, yeah, thank you for your contribution. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty much. Actually add as an underscore there. Okay, so let's go back to our mockup. Let's see, what do we need? We actually gonna have, so when you see a design like this, you might be thinking, okay, we're gonna need to have like this thing right here, this part, this footer or this header is gonna need to like float over the rest of the page a little bit, but that's not necessarily how we're gonna do it. What you typically want to have is that your designer is gonna have this stuff right here as a specific cutout, as a image really, and with this right here as being like a little transparent area, while this whole entire footer part is just one single image, while the rest of this is just one big section. So it should just flow like a normal, so in a way it would just flow like a normal element within your page. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. And if we actually go, before we do that, if we actually go to the asset images folder, we can see exactly as like our image right here is just an image with actual transparent on the left and right of that image bottom section. And so if we go back to our index file, what we would do is just basically call that, or basically just import that image. So I just do exactly that, image / dog background. And then for the alt, let's just add it as dog background. Yeah, that looks good. Let's just remove this part. There we go. Now, if we navigate to our browser and actually look at our page now, we'll see that the image, or like the background image, is just too big. What we're going to want to do is add some information, or really add a constraint to like that background image. So we're going to want to, before we even do that, we actually going to need to add a class to our image so we can actually target that image. And so let's just copy this class up here in our section. So we could just use it as a prefix, and then we can just say, let's call it header image. Okay, there we go. Then we just want to copy that. Let's first save it, copy it, and then go back to our style. And within this, what we're going to want to do is just add a 100% there, which should constrain our image to the parent size. Yeah, because what was happening beforehand was that the image was overflowing from its parent. And so now what we're doing is just saying, hey, constrain it so that it doesn't overflow. Now, okay, now that we have that in place, now the next thing we're going to want to do is actually add a little bit of background. Because if you go back to our mockup, we can see that the background color of the section is like this golden color. So we're going to want to just add that so we actually can see a little bit better of what we're doing here. Okay, so we already know that our section class name is thank you. So let's go back and grab that really quick. And then let's just add that to our CSS. And from there, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set the background color to the colors that we're looking for. And to do that, we could just go right here, and this right here is going to be how we're going to get that gradient look for our background. Because as you can see, it's a little bit darker on the left hand side compared to the right hand side, and that's then we can accomplish that with defining it as a gradient, a linear gradient to do that. And so right here we just have it. This is like that lighter color over here, and our darker color will be over here. Now we actually can grab our color from up here instead of having it defined directly. Let's actually close that right hand side or the left hand menu, and let's define our variable. There we go. Reload it, and there we go. So we have that in place. Now let's like I was saying earlier, we have like the overflow, but before we actually tweak the overflow, let's just add a little border radius to our thank you section, just for like demonstration purposes, to actually make it look a little bit better. But now what we can see here is that our top side, or like our top corners of our section, is not actually rounded also like the bottom. Again, that's because our image is overflowing its parent, so that it's not actually being clipped. And to actually do that, what we're going to want to do is basically come over here and just say overflow hidden, which is basically going to just clip all of the children of the parent section to whatever the parent borders is. Okay, there we go. So now that we have the parent taken care of, let's go back to our index file and continue to add the rest of our information. So what we have, I just move this over for really quick and go back to our mockup. Now what we need, since we have our image in place, or our header image in place, as you can see, and we have like the background color in place, now it's time to add the message. We're actually going to need to change the grammar of that message, but for now we'll just leave it as is. Okay, so now that we have that, let's navigate down. Let's add a new section, and within this section, let's call it thank you body, since it's going to be where we're going to house the rest of our information, or rest of our design. Okay, so let's add thank you body for the section, and then within that we're going to want to add our paragraph, and then from there we're going to just want to add the text. Then if we come back over here and just look, okay, yeah. Okay, so here we go. So we have our message in place. Now let's come back and add a class for our message. So we're gonna add thank you message. Okay, so at this point, you know, it looks pretty good. We have our, so just do a recap. We have our header image, and then we have our message. Now let's come back down. Well, let's actually go back to our mockup. Okay, so the message, and now we just need to add our button. So let's just quickly add the button here. And I think the button has a message of home, correct? But it's all uppercase. So let's just make that change really quick. All uppercase, and then we can also add the class for our button, and I just call it, and just add the thank you prefix, but change it to home. Okay, looks good. Now that we have that, let's do a quick save. Okay, there we go. So we have our message and our button, but as you can see, our button is not styled the way we need it. So we're gonna, not right now, we're not gonna head directly to our style. We're gonna make a few more changes in our HTML before we head to our style. If we review our mockup, we can see that our message has two different styles within the message. With the two different styles, like with the words and stuff like that, are two different styles. So we have like this part right here, like the name, which seems to be like a font weight of maybe normal or regular, or maybe like a thinner weight. But the thank you part is, I would say bold. So to accommodate something like that, what we're going to have to do is further segment our message into parts. And to do that, we can use the span tag for that. Okay, let's actually, okay, then we're going to just copy our thank you. We're going to copy our thank you into our span. And then we also going to want to have to do the same thing for this word right here. Okay, grab that, stick it there. Okay, so yeah, we're actually going to have to put the apostrophe also in the span, since that also needs to be made bold. Okay. Okay, great. Now let's see what else. Then from there, we just need to add, we're going to just need to add a class so we can actually target this. I just call it, let's just use the prefix thank you message part, so we can target that. So let's copy this part right here. Let's scroll over and add it to our second span that we defined. Okay, great. Now that we have that, I believe we have everything in place, at least from the HTML standpoint, that we can head over to our style at this point. So let's see. Yep, I think so. Yep. Okay, now that we have that in place, now let's just head over to our style. The first thing we want to target is the actual whole, also like the body content, the thank you body right here, which is going to contain our message and our button. We're going to want to center that, all of that directly within our thank you section. And so an easy way to do that is just to come over here and target the body. And we're going to want to, you guessed it, use flex for that. But if we come over here and refresh, we'll see that it moved everything into a one row. That's because the flex default for the column direction is always row, and so we're going to want to overwrite that and specifically set it. There we go. So it has moved it back down. Okay, great. Now from there, let's actually center our content, and we're going to do that with a line items, and to specify that center, refresh, and there we go. It moved everything into the middle. And I would say the last thing you're going to want to do is just add a little bit of padding. A little bit of padding to the bottom. We're not going to want to add padding around the entire thing. We don't need to do that. So just add a little bit of padding to the bottom. Okay. So we just add it as 15%. Okay. Yeah, so it's a little bit too much at this point, but once we scale up our text in our button, it should look a little bit better. But for now, we'll just leave it as that. Okay, now let's head. The next thing we're gonna want to do is head to our. We're gonna want to head to our. Let's head to our thank you message. Since we have the body in place and then we already have the header is already kind of, you know, exactly what we wanted. So the next thing will be the message. So from there, we don't need to we don't need to define the text as centered since it's already centered. So what we can do is let's just go and set the font size, and to find out what the font size will be, we can head back to our style guide, and the title, it says it's 32 pixels. So let's see what that looks like. Well, actually, well, title, it actually should be message, but that should be fixed once you actually get this final style guide from the download link. That should be fixed. But for now, let's just call it 32 pixels. Let's reload. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's head back to our mockup. Just do a quick check against our mockup just to see how that looks. Oops, let's open. Oops, I keep forgetting that within like this, since the style guide is a mockup. I mean, it's yeah, mockup file. Certain shortcuts will not work within there. Okay, but let's just go back to our mockup and open that. Close the side. Okay, yeah, looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so yeah, I did mention that we do not need to center our text, but unfortunately we actually do need to center our text because as you can see right here, it's actually rendering everything to the left. But as you can see, when we shrink down our design, it should still remain in the center. So for that, what we'll do is come over here and what is it? I think it's text align center. Okay, let's reload that. Okay, and there we go. Now it renders in the center on a small screen and on larger screens. Yep, there we go. Looks good. Now the only thing from that is that if we shrink it down even further, we'll see that our message is pretty much bordered right up against our, you know, right against the edges of our section. So to fix that, what we're going to want to do is kind of directly set the width of our message to, let's say 90% instead of adding padding around that. There we go. And that just kind of just shrinks it down, and so that it has so that it looks a little bit better. Again, if you go back up to our mockup, now the mockup is going to show it as how it's going to look like in a desktop environment. We don't have a mockup for the mobile, but for the most part, you should still at least make sure that your design looks good on a mobile environment also. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Now that we have that in place, let's actually start to target our parts, our message parts. So from there, what we're going to want to do is message, just grab that and set the font weight. There we go. Let's head back out to our style guide. Font weight should be, oh, this is actually specifying as a semi-bold, which I think is actually supposed to be a regular, at least for the title. But the message part, again, like I said, that should be fixed in the final guide that you guys receive. Okay, let's do 600. Come back over here and reload, and there we go. Our thank you part is actually being set as bold. Looks pretty good. There we go. It looks pretty good. Now let's see what else. What do we need to do at this point? We need to actually make the change for our button now. Now there's a pretty a easier way to do this, but for the most part, what I'm gonna do is just grab. I'm gonna just grab all of this information, yeah, off to the side, because and then I'll just go over it really quick. There we go. It looks pretty good. Go back up to the mockup. So what we really should be doing is that, like, the color of the home text probably should be more of like a lighter color, at least based on the mockup. However, we went with a little darker one because that lighter yellow on a yellow, lighter yellow on a white background would be a little bit harder to read. So for the most part, we're not gonna, and that's why we went with a little darker color there. So, but I think the last thing we probably gonna want to do is just extend our button width out a little bit more. Okay, so as we see here, let's actually set the height and actually set the width of our button. So the width of our button is going to be let's try 210 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Okay, there we go. It looks good, and it actually looks a little bit closer to our mockup. We can add a little bit more width to that. Let's try 250. See how well that looks. Okay, yeah, that looks a little bit better. Okay, great. Okay, so yep, our code is showing, and it's looking pretty close to our design. Now, like we said earlier, the bottom padding, is a little bit too much, so let's actually start tweaking that a little bit more. Let's save that. Let's try 12%. Let's go with, let's try 8%. See how well that looks. Okay, that actually looks a little bit better. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, what else? So there we go. Looks pretty good from the index side. Looks like we have everything in place. So yep, we have our thank you section, our image, our body, message parts. We have the button. Yep, we have the button. Button looks good. Style looks good. We added our thank you section with the linear graded background. We added the overflow set to it so that the header image will not so the header image will be clipped by the thank you section. We added that. We added the width to our header image. The body, we set that as flex and added as a column. We centered our content, then we added the bottom padding. Then for the message, we set the center, the text center. We set the font size, the width. Everything looks pretty good there. Then we actually set the message parts. And so there you go. It looks pretty good. And that is pretty much the code for the thank you section contest. Now, if you like this video, remember to go down the bottom and drop a comment below. Or if you didn't like it, also head to the bottom and leave a comment below. And so until then, thank you for watching this contest video and have a nice day.